Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Welcome, everybody, to the Monday, March 3rd, 2014 edition of Monday Roundup. I am your host, Dean Esmay, managing editor of AVoiceForMen.com. Sneezing this afternoon is Dr. Tara Palmatier of ShrinkForMen.com. Say hello to the people, Dr. T.
Hello.
And Gesundheit.
Thank you.
And also, as
you hold the boogers.
Yeah, just kind of flick those on the wall behind you, Tara. No one will see them.
I'm a therapist. I always have a box of tissues on hand.
I'll bet you do. And of course, as always, the wife-beating rapist and misogynist, Paul Elam. How you doing today, Paul?
I'm doing great. Hello, everybody.
All right, we're got a number of things we're going to talk about today, including sexual harassment in the workplace, the New Republic, Emily Matchar's piece, Jessica Valenti, our hero. But first, we have a shout out to our friends at Men's Rights Edmonton, and we got an event coming up that Men's Rights Edmonton wants some help with. Paul, you want to tell us a little bit about that?
Well, it appears that the time for help has passed. We just want to pass on a word on behalf of Men's Rights Edmonton. Nick Redding was attempting to go and film an event at the University of Alberta called on the topic of men and feminism, but because he was not a professional videographer and therefore did not have the requisite $3 million insurance required by the university's on-campus filming policy, he was uninvited from the event. Since Nick won't be able to go there with a camera to protect himself against any false allegations, which is a very, very smart piece of thinking in my book, that might be made against him, he won't be going at all, though he would still like to hear what the speakers have to say, since those speakers are people of interest to Men's Rights Edmonton, namely Barrett Weber, who we remember did the little video on him, and a few clones got together and said why a voice for men was not a voice for them, if that's the same Barrett Weber I'm thinking of, and Dr. Lisa Gotel. Men's Rights Edmonton actually owes their popularity to Dr. Gotel because she's the one who went to the media with the "Don't Be That Girl" poster. And so that is that. Once again, the feminists have come up with a way to say, well, you can participate if you cough up a big pile of cash, otherwise no dice.
That's their policy on visitation for fathers too, isn't it?
Yes, something like that.
You know, it's rather amusing that they would pull something like that. I mean, it's obviously a bogus request, since all he'd be having is a personal camera that anybody could have, but it's clearly an effort to keep somebody from filming it. And I find it interesting how often these ideologues, especially at the university, are afraid to have people see and hear what they're saying. They want it in closed-door sessions where they know they're going to have a friendly audience and nobody is going to bother to question them on anything, and they don't want people to know. Or actually, I believe one of the things Nick was asking is hoping that they would put their videos online so people could look at them. I won't hold my breath because I find this typical. We've had an open debate challenge for feminists to debate a female MRA, because I remember Charles Clymer telling us, well, how come you're not debating with a woman, Paul? It's like, because they always decline. But whatever, we have female MRAs love to do a debate too. Bet you they're not welcome. Anyway, blah-bitty-blah. We have a couple of stories we want to talk about today. Dr. T especially wanted to talk about a piece that she found in, what is this in?
It's in a number of publications. You can find it in New York newspapers as well.
Okay, well, yep, a former PR firm employee in New York, a Joseph Jackson, was fired from his job and is suing the company because he says two of the women there sexually harassed him. Take it away, Dr. T. Tell us about it.
Apparently, Joseph Jackson, a young man who's working in a PR firm, Open Communications, who, by the way, specializes in doing PR for tech companies, was fired without any warning after having been told he was doing a good job because he complained to his boss. His last name is Morris. I'm forgetting his first name. Well, that doesn't matter, because one of the company's founders, Sally O'Dowd, and another PR person working there, a Katie Campesano, allegedly repeatedly sexually harassed him at the workplace. Sally O'Dowd even went so far as to grope his bicep and tell Joseph Jackson, who is an African-American man, that he reminded her of her young Puerto Rican lover, Apollo.
Come on. Oh, God.
Well, I guess that's better than her young Greek lover, Zeus, or
Well, how could you tell
or burly Norwegian younger lover, Thor.
How could you tell just from groping his bicep?
Okay, so it gets better. Katie Campesano, and if you look up any of the news stories, you if this isn't a reason not to post photos, non-professional looking photos on your social media pages, I don't know what is. The pictures of this Sally O'Dowd and Katie Campesano are not what I would want splashed all over the newspapers.
I like the one of the girl on top of the toilet.
The toilet, yeah, the toilet in her Stars and Stripes leggings. But apparently Katie Campesano, they were potentially going to have a new client to do PR for. It was a condom company, and so she opened up a condom and put it on a banana and said, allegedly said, "Oh, this is tight around the base, so Joe probably couldn't wear it." And then at one point allegedly texted him, I'm assuming he has screenshots of this, a text that said, "So when are we going to have our bang sesh?" Of course, the PR firm is denying that any of this happened, since a lot of, according to the news report I read, much of these communications actually happened by text. I think this young man is probably going to get a settlement at some point. In any case, Katie Campesano, I believe, received a promotion after he filed complaints with his boss that she was sexually harassing him, and Sally O'Dowd is still there, and this man is seeking damages, I believe, upwards of 7 figures. Now, what I find really interesting is that this is a PR company that specializes in doing publicity and marketing for tech businesses, and as we know, the tech world is very, very unfriendly to women, right? And the men are just sexual predators on the make to take advantage of the few women in tech and even PR tech. If any of you remember, oh gosh,
Adria Richards.
I'm for Adria Richards and Donglegate, yes.
Yeah.
And here we have 2 women who, I swear to God, are making their come-ons look like something out of a trite and cliched 1950s sexual farce office romance rom-com. It's like, let me feel your biceps. You remind me of my young lover Apollo. It's like, Jesus Christ.
All right.
I hope their come-ons aren't reflective of the type of publicity they do for their company, because they're pretty ham-fisted.
All right, I'm gonna show my age here. Did any of the news reports mention anything about a pubic hair in a can of Coke?
No.
Paul
No, but this company doesn't employ any Supreme Court justices. So
oh God,
no, that's okay. Neither does the Supreme Court.
Isn't that like 25 years ago? Are we really that old? Yeah. Anita Hill, Clarence Thomas. Oh God, I'm not even going to get into it. But actually, now I will go ahead and mention what these women are accused of is more extreme than anything that Anita Hill accused Clarence Thomas of. I actually don't know what I think, to be honest with you. I'm like, part of me's going, well, what's good for the gander is good for the goose, right? I mean, if you're going to have these laws in the first place, then they ought to apply in a gender-neutral fashion.
Absolutely.
I don't know if I think they're good laws in the first place, because to me, real sexual harassment is fuck me or get out, you're fired. or actually groping someone. So I'm really kind of conflicted on this.
Well, he was allegedly groped.
Okay.
At one point, Sally O'Dowd allegedly took Mr. Jackson's hand and made him fondle her hard and tight abs that she'd been working out on. Even though he declined touching them, she took his hand and rubbed it on her hard and tight belly, supposedly. And there was other touching, unwanted touching. So he appears to have done the right thing. He went to his boss, he filed a complaint, and it got him fired. And if that's the case, I mean, I don't think any man or woman should have to deal with that kind of blatant unwanted attention at work. And that doesn't mean, let's say one of these women asked him out on a date, and he declined. I don't think that's harassment, but touching him, texting him, so when are we going to have our bang sesh?
I've got mixed feelings too about this. Honestly, there's the human side of it, which I recall once in the 80s at a facility that I worked at in the nursing department. There was a nursing supervisor, somebody definitely above me on the rungs of power at the time, that hit on me constantly. Every time I came in there, she hit on me, and it made me feel extremely uncomfortable. I hated it. I hated going in there because of that. On the other hand, she wasn't hot. She was ugly. And if I'm going to be honest, part of the equation here is that if I had been attracted to her, my reaction would have been different. However, that being said, that sort of stuff in the workplace is what legally constitutes a hostile working environment sexually. Men in this position on mere accusation get promoted. Mm-hmm. Most men are out the door on administrative leave pending investigation, with pay if they're lucky, without pay if they're not. And then if there's any modicum of one shred of evidence against them, their careers are over. So if these women did this, I think this guy should sue the living crap out of them, and he should collect and pay, and these women should be fired as an example that the law, the way it stands, is going to apply to everyone.
Yeah, I think that's probably where I come down. We may wish to debate the merits of these laws, or if they're correct or not correct, or too extreme or not enough, but essentially if they're not applying the same way, then I call bullshit. And it does look like these women look part of a culture of female entitlement to me, because they're obviously behaving really a lot like what I would think of as high school behavior, at least is what they're described as doing. Just ridiculous. I can't imagine. Well, I mean, I guess I could. I could imagine texting Dr. T something like, "When are we going to have our bang sesh?" But I know her well enough that she'd laugh.
Unless it's involving bongos.
Yeah,
please
don't. But I mean, she'd probably just go, and that would be the end of that, right? So, but like, what's wrong with you, Dean? Did you lose your mind?
Dean, get those meds adjusted. Yeah.
But I don't know. This looks very immature. These look like two very immature women, and they're doing
immature women. One who appears to be in her 50s, the other in her late 20s, early 30s. So emotionally immature, yes, but old enough to know better. And I'm pretty sure I've been self-employed for the last few years, but I seem to recall at every place of employment I worked, they give you orientation about what constitutes sexual harassment in the workplace, and you have to sign off that you watched the really badly produced video or read the little booklet on it. So I'm pretty sure that they knew groping a coworker and forcing a coworker to touch them and sending texts about banging, etc. is probably not condoned by their company. So
you know what? I'll tell you this.
Immature, shimmature, not an excuse. I'm sure they're incredibly emotionally immature, But that doesn't mean they're not responsible for their behaviors.
I hope his lawyer, by the way, is sharp enough to figure out that the woman, after being accused, if he has the goods on her and the evidence, has been promoted within that company. That ought to weigh pretty heavily when it comes to things like punitive damages in a lawsuit, because what they're doing basically is rewarding her behavior.
And that does, I mean, it does remind me of something that the last major corporate job I had, and I don't like corporate America much, but that's me. The last major corporate job I had, part of the orientation was a sexual harassment training seminar with videos, and it was 98% content about why men shouldn't treat women a certain way, and maybe 2% on women, and it was on some women are too huggy and might make people uncomfortable by dispensing hugs, and that's as far as that went. Everything else was this lopsided thing about male offending females. Some of the guys, this was probably 10 years ago, some of the guys took offense of it. It wouldn't surprise me if these women took those sexual orientation classes and drew the message, oh, this doesn't apply to me. I don't know. I'm just guessing.
The thing about all sensitivity training, so supposedly, that I've ever seen is that every last bit of it is inherently insensitive. It picks one group as perpetrators, it picks another group as victims, and shows absolutely abject insensitivity toward the group that's targeted as perpetrator. There's not sensitivity training, there's insensitivity training.
And our friend Sage Gerard, a.k.a. Victor Zen, has a video up on the front page of A Voice for Men now. KSUM's doing an investigation of some rape prevention courses, too. Everybody might want to check that out. Anyway, otherwise, I think we've said all we can say. We don't know enough to know everything here, but...
she's guilty. They're both guilty. we don't need due process anymore, so why the hell do we need journalistic integrity? We don't...
Hey, that's true.
Throw out the alleged. The bitches are guilty. Hang them out.
You know what? A preponderance of the evidence leads me to believe that they should be fired.
A preponderance of my conjecture leads me to believe they should be fired.
Exactly, and that's all we should need. I mean, after all, having a job isn't a right, just like going to university isn't a right. Yeah, all right. Well, I think we've beaten this dead horse long enough. Anything else someone to say about it?
Well, I'll just say one last thing. That'll teach him to assert his black male privilege in the workplace.
Yeah, no kidding. You know, those black males are just so oppressive to them white women.
I'm thinking of you remember the original Saturday Night Live back in the 70s? Well, I remember watching videos of it. I wasn't
back when it was culturally relevant.
Yeah. Yes, I wasn't old enough to stay up to watch it, but there was a skit where Lorraine Newman was playing a little girl, and the tagline was "Pleasure me, Mandingo," and I just have this. It's what comes to mind when I think of this 50-something-year-old woman propositioning this young man. And I don't know what Katie Campesano's deal is, but if they indeed did it, but it just, white women taking advantage.
There's nothing more privileged in this world than a young white woman, I'll tell you that. In any case, all right, now we got the meat of what we wanted to talk about. I gotta admit, when I looked at this, I thought, I don't want to talk about it. But it's interesting to talk about. Emily Matchar, who spent, I'm going to guess, close to 3 hours talking to various people on A Voice for Men, including me, Paul, Karen Strawn, about the issue of rape, and only about rape, which of course led us to discuss both female-perpetrated sexual assault and how that's elided in the statistics, and rape hysteria and false allegations. And then she wrote about it in the New Republic. Karen Strawn wrote a magnificent response, which I thought was just brilliant. I wish I could find it now. Oh yeah, it's on avoiceformen.com. It's called Whispers of Dissent Within the Feminist Echo Chamber. A shout out to Karen. She did a real nice job with that. When I was reading it, my brain was full of fuck, but she did get some things right, although I just have to call out one element of hypocrisy, which is that she seemed to be accusing us of being obsessed with the rape issue. When she called us to ask about rape.
Projection! It's not just the room in the back of a movie theater, ladies.
We talk about
She accused us of being obsessed with the very subject and only subject she wanted to talk about.
Right. So, and accused us of being particularly obsessed with one particular case that I don't believe we ever wrote more than one article about. I can't even remember what it was. Connor or something or other? I mean, not that we don't support the guy, because I remember reading about it and being totally on his side, but I don't remember ever talking that much about it. But, well, I don't know. Who else has something to say about that?
So, speaking about projection, the title of the article was that MRAs are seeking to redefine the meaning of rape. So, where do we start with that shit?
Well, first off, Mary Koss changed the definition in the first place, and so did the CDC. That's number one. I'll actually grant her that based on statistical research, some of us have, made the case that historically everybody's tended to look at rape as penetration, and by questioning whether that should be the definition, we're raising questions, but
No, I don't agree. I think that historically people have overall viewed rape in the traditional paradigm of being perpetrated by men and women being violated. But I think at the root of that understanding has always been the idea of sex that was forced or coerced. That is what defines rape in most people's minds. Certainly, I don't think we're trying to redefine it and nearly like, oh my God, feminists have come up with date rape and birth rape and marital rape and
enthusiastic consent
and every kind
rapey this, rapey that.
Sex is rape.
The man disagreed with me. He's rapey.
Yes, they've redefined rape to the point of meaninglessness. I think what the MRM has tried to do was to simply expand the understanding that women aren't the only victims and men aren't the only perpetrators of forced, coerced, illegal sex. That's not redefining rape. That's simply putting a bigger spotlight.
It's actually using a more accurate definition for rape, other than, what feminists now, if it's you ask a woman for coffee in the elevator, it's rapey. Give me a break.
I hate that word. I hate that word.
So do I.
Although you almost can't avoid using it now. Yeah, I feel raped by the rapey word. But seriously, no, it shocks people when you look at statistics and find that more men report being forced into vaginal or coerced into or pressured into vaginal intercourse with women than most people would think. But that's not trying to change the definition. It really isn't, I don't think. But in any case, what I also found fascinating is that, let's see, I spoke to her for a good about 40 minutes or so, 45 minutes. Karen went for the better part of an hour. I think you went for the better part of an hour. I remember offering her multiple independent references she could check for herself, and what wound up in the article was so tiny and felt very out of context. Yet at the same time, she made what may be the career-ending blunder for poor Emily. At the end of her article, she actually suggests that if progressives and feminists don't start addressing these issues, they're going to be in trouble.
Well, in true feminist fashion, she, of course, implied that the issues weren't what we said they were, and then said that the issues were what we said they were, and that we were pointing to a lot of facts, and that this stuff needed to be talked about, but it shouldn't be left to us to talk about it because we don't know what we're talking about. We're getting everything wrong.
Even though she admitted that We use a lot of facts.
Yes, exactly. And so, but and the career-ending blunder, it may not be career-ending because feminism is finding itself having to change, even though this did unleash a tweet storm from Jessica Valenti, who got all really rapey about, in her reaction to Matchar's writing. Matchar suggested that if progressives and feminists don't pick up these issues and start dealing with them, then they're going to be left with us just talking about them.
Well, here's the problem. They have been dealing with them, and they're fucking it all up.
Yes.
Okay? So what they need to do is deal with them in an honest and sensible, non-polarizing way. Acknowledge that there are male victims. Acknowledge that this has nothing to do with the patriarchy. It has to do with people who are criminal. And they need to stop redefining rape as regret, as I don't want to get in trouble with my boyfriend because I had sex with a member of the basketball team on Friday night after a few beers. I mean, it's...
Well, what's really funny to me is that she thinks that we're not qualified to talk about it, so that somebody needs to take over and do it. And let me tell you, Emily Matchar wrote exactly what I wanted her to write in that article. When all is said and done, I did not expect her to come out and pat me on the head, and Dean and Karen Strawn, and say, what a great job you guys are doing bringing light to the issues. She did what AVFM has been so successful at having people in the mainstream do for a long time now. She's talking about the issues for us. She's acknowledging that the issues are there, that they're real, and that they do need to be discussed. Now, the hardliners like Valenti and that group are going to try to crucify her, of course, but she is part of a trend in the media now that they can no longer ignore this stuff. We do have there is a dialogue, Emily, because of us. Were it not because of us, there would be no dialogue at all. So for you to suggest that somebody else needs to get this started is like saying Columbus discovered America.
And it's like, seriously. So the thing that really gets me is like they like to claim ownership of issues. No, that's our issue. Nobody else can discuss it. It's our issue.
That's right.
Which is another crock. It's like you don't own the issues, first of all. Second of all, rape affects men whether they've been the victims of sexual assault or whether they have a loved one who has been the victim of a sexual assault, or if they're a victim of false allegations. So feminists don't own any of the issues, not even feminism.
I want to I don't know if it's even backpedal. I want to clarify. I was being a little jokey about it being the end of Emily Matchar's career. But what I do want to note, though, that in the past, when we've had reporters come out and be insufficiently hostile to us and be in any way suggesting that there might be something to what we're saying, at least one guy wound up pulling her piece out of, I don't remember what.
Toronto Star.
That's right, because she got a vicious storm of attacks from feminists for having written a moderately, I don't know, I'd give it a C+, I think, on Paul. We've seen others be really viciously condemned for being at all nice to anything about anything we have to say. And it has been harmful to some people. On the other hand, my advice to Emily, if she's listening, would be to weather the storm and refuse to apologize. Because if you apologize to these goddamn bullies, and by the way, that's exactly what Jessica Valenti is, a thug and a bully, she'll just keep going. And they'll Naomi Wolf you. Remember what they did to Naomi Wolf, too. The sisterhood turned on Naomi Wolf. I don't even remember what it was she did wrong, but she's supposedly now a rape apologist. And I don't even like Naomi Wolf. That doesn't have nothing to do with it. The sisterhood will turn on you, and your only choice is to either run away or refuse to step back and refuse to stand down.
And what's really funny about Naomi Wolf, I guess she's trying to reclaim her status with the sisterhood now, because as a part of a panel discussion with the Liberty Foundation in New Hampshire, she called Karen Strawn a rape apologist. I think she's trying to get her rapey credentials back with the sisterhood, and that's where this stuff goes. But I do want to make it a point to thank Emily Matchar for doing that article, doing the interviews, and for endorsing the issues that we speak about, which is tantamount to an endorsement for AVFM. I am glad to know that we have the New Republic behind us in this quest for civil rights.
Yeah, yeah. Even if they have to grudgingly say, well, you know what the whole article gets down to? It's not what you said, it's how you said it. And the only response I have to that is, you know what? There have been people talking about this for 20 years. Now you're deciding to listen to us. Doesn't take much to add 2 and 2 together.
That's just another bullshit maneuver to avoid the subject.
And I want to add something else to that. If we didn't have to fucking say it like we fucking say it, we would fucking say it different.
That's right.
We do have to say it like we fucking say it. So unless you want us to keep fucking saying it like this, then start fucking focusing on the fucking issues.
That's right, in a real way and not in an oh yeah you too way that minimizes male victims and especially minimizes female perpetrators. I also want to add a shout out. We didn't get this into the story links, but I will get it out afterwards when we're done here. One of our regulars, Astro Kid NJ, one of our best commenters and regular supporters, put together something on Storify.com looking at Jessica Valenti and others' reactions to this, and it's pretty funny. Jessica is particularly amusing. Jessica trotted out the lie. By the way, hi Jessica, you're a liar that we're a hate group and we harass people, both of which are lies. And I remember tweeting her back and saying, you know, because she was angry with Emily for not saying, we're not telling people that we are a listed hate group and that we harass people.
Didn't Emily reply it's because the SPLC said that they're not a hate group? And I think Valenti's response was, yes, but they're still much regarded as a hate group. It's like, yes, but not by the SPLC. Liar, liar, pants on fire.
That's right. We regard Jessica Valenti and all of her friends as a hate group. One that promotes violence and intolerance and bigotry. So they're widely regarded. Jessica, you're widely regarded as part of a hate group. Thank you very much. I tweeted her back, well, maybe Emily didn't write that because it's a damn lie. And I got about 40 people retweeted that, so that made me happy. In any case, yeah, it's on Storify. I'll send it to people. I'll make sure it's in the low bar here on YouTube when we're done.
But you know, that's a common tactic that the feminist-minded journalists use in their reporting about the men's human rights movement. They always throw out that canard of the SPLC. And it doesn't matter that it's not true or not, but you know, people read that, they, oh, hate group. Yes, hate group. You know, it pushes an emotional lever when an uninformed reader reads it. So they stick with it, even though they know it's a lie.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's the general masses, though. I mean, they're not much different than Homer Simpson going, donuts, good. It's that right. Sort of, you know, you just trigger them psychologically, point in a particular direction.
Yeah, but Homer Simpson actually has a point. Donuts are good.
That's
Homer Simpson isn't lying. Donuts are good. So is beer.
I stand corrected.
They're worse than Homer Simpson because they're getting it wrong.
I honestly think we may be looking at. I mean, it is possible that Jessica and her friends will win the day, and the New Republic will flee away and never do something like this again, and poor Emily will never do something like this again.
What does Jessica Valenti actually do? Does she have a job besides her Twitter feed? Like, what does she do?
She runs Feminist, or at least last I checked.
Oh, I thought she was no longer running that.
She established it. I think she owns it. I'm actually not sure what she does. I think she is like Amanda Marcotte, a professional complainer and bigot, and I think that's all that she is. I know she had a kid some years ago, and then she got quiet after that. She's got some books she's published, got some royalties from that. She at least started feministing, which is a cesspool of, well, it's not as irrational as Jezebel, but I think as we have established, being not as irrational as Jezebel is like not being as weird as Tiny Tim or Pee Wee Herman. It's whatever. And yeah, she's famous for being famous, basically. She's certainly not a great intellectual light. She's certainly very hateful. There's people more hateful than her, but she's pretty damn nasty and vicious. I predict that she dies very old, alone, unloved, with her cats. But we'll see. Oh, that was really mean, wasn't it?
Well, who's going to feed the cat?
Fancy feast for 12, lean cuisine for 1.
I actually view this New Republic piece as a very good thing. I mean, yeah, they fucked it up right and left, but we're used to seeing that. In the final analysis, the issues were out there, so I'm going to have to agree with you, Paul. In the final analysis, the issues are out there. We're acknowledged, and the sisterhood is frightened because if we're acknowledged at all, they might actually have to say, well, we have a point. And so, you know what? I'll even go ahead and say this now. I just said all sorts of mean things about Jessica Valenti. Hey, Jessica, if I've got you wrong, you're invited to a hangout, and we'll talk this through, and we'll see if I got you wrong. And I'll apologize if I'm wrong. Otherwise, whatever.
Not holding my breath.
No, but hey, here's an olive branch. Come talk to us. We're human, you know. We're just not going to be bullied and slapped around for having beliefs you don't have. Well, beyond that, I'm not sure what else we have to say.
Well, we were going to talk maybe a little bit about this story coming out of Australia. I did a little piece on it this morning. It's up on the site called Killing for Equality. And it is a man in Australia was in an argument with his what's called a de facto wife in Australia. It'd be common law here in the States. And he had a rifle. She was on the ground. And he shot her 5 times, twice in the head first, twice in the abdomen, and once through the wrist, and of course killing her. He was tried and found not guilty because she was an abusive spouse and rose to the level, in legal terms, in Australia anyway, of what is called their intimate terrorism. And that brings up a question. I mean, we have some I think, ethical dilemmas in evaluating this story. Usually when we're talking about a spouse being killed and the one that did the killing walk away, it's always been a woman doing the walking and the man doing the dying. As a matter of fact, I don't ever remember this happening again. And we have always roundly condemned this. I wrote a piece this morning condemning this verdict. I think there were other options. I mean, certainly open to discussion, but it's hard for me to imagine that if you have somebody on the ground before you and you're holding a rifle that is in any way necessary to pump enough lead into them to kill them 4 times over, which is exactly what he did. I don't want to see anybody walk for murder. I don't want to see anybody get a pass based on abuse. Because we're setting up a system where now, why bother with the divorce family courts? If your spouse is nasty enough, just gun them down. And you can avoid the whole process. You can get instant custody. You can keep all the property. If you're not guilty of any crime, just kill your partner. I know there's going to be people that disagree with that. And by the way, I'm not saying I don't think this woman was abusive. I am sure in order for an Australian jury of 9 women and 3 men to give this guy a pass, she must have been some piece of work while she was alive in order to justify in their minds that kind of decision. I'm sure she was abusive as hell. Is it within reason to kill her? Nope. Not by my thinking. And I'll pass that to Dean and Tara for your thoughts on it.
I am trying to find this because it was in Australia, and within the last year we published an article written by an Australian legal analyst that talked about how Australian law has changed several times because the law allows various forms of this self-defense because I was abused thing, and every time a man takes advantage of it, they rewrite the law. so that it can only apply to women again. So this appears to be part of a repeat pattern there. I know that from my perspective, while I will point out that a battered woman has many resources to run away and leave, there are very few resources for a man to do that, which would mean it's, I don't want to say this because it's not right, but I mean, it's a little more easy to say, for me to believe a man who said, I had nowhere else to go. It's a little easier for me to believe that. That said, it's really tough for me to just sit there and say, therefore, yeah, shoot her 2 times in the head, 2 times in the abdomen, and while she's flat on her face. I can't get behind that. I don't know anybody who could. But I don't know. What do you think, Tara?
I'm not happy about anyone being robbed of due process. Although I think I read another article, I don't think it was on AVFM, that was the rifle hers, and it was in her car, and she was on her way to this man's father's house, whom she had threatened to kill. Did I read that correctly?
That is correct. The rifle was in her car.
So it wasn't like she was asleep in her bed and you just popped a couple of caps in her.
Nope, not
she
at all.
was on her way. She had the ability. She had the means to commit the crime. She made the threat. She was en route to his father's house and had a loaded rifle that he, I guess, got away from her and used on her. Correct?
He took it out of the car. It was in the car. She didn't have it in her hands.
Okay.
He went into the car, retrieved it, and then pushed her to the ground and shot her 5 times. And this was after she made a threat to harm his father. All of that is a part of the record in this case. I guess my question there, well, that is a lot different scenario than the woman who claims to be physically abused and puts a shotgun to her husband's head while he's asleep and blows his brains out. They're 2 totally different scenarios. But still at that point, once he has possession of that weapon, to me, her threat is mitigated.
Yes, and I would think that maybe, I mean, I wasn't there, but if you've removed the weapon, then you call the police.
Yep.
Yeah, although we must admit, I mean, and again, I don't want to come across wrong here. You must admit the reality that if he had called the police, he might have gone to jail.
He might have, or he might have gone to jail, and then there might have been a trial, and this stuff might have come out, and he would have been exonerated.
And if he's standing there with a rifle, he might have gotten shot.
What we should basically be doing is condemning a set of social attitudes and a legal climate wherein men would even think that they shouldn't be able to call the police there. Yeah, they should. He should have somewhere to go. He should be confident that he can call the police and will not be persecuted. I'm not saying that makes his action excusable, because it does not in any way. This is horrific. I don't care if she was a fucking she-devil banshee from hell. You don't fucking shoot somebody in the head unless you're in clear and imminent threat. They're a clear and imminent threat, right?
And here is what, and I will try to dig out the study and put it in the low bar for everybody. Here is where the hypocrisy of feminism shows its ugly head in the worst possible way. In the mid-1960s in Detroit, the ratio of wives killing husbands to husbands killing wives was roughly equal. It was a little more women getting killed than men, but it was very, very close to a 50-50 split. During the late 60s, early 70s, throughout the 70s, they built a number of women's shelters. Now, the incidence of men killing their wives is much greater than wives killing their husbands. Why? Because women have some place to go before they resort to killing somebody. But we don't build shelters for men. We don't build refuges for them. We don't give them places to go. And there's, direct positive evidence right there that the lack of services for men equals dead women. And feminists still don't want to hear about this. They're so tied up in keeping the money that's available for these services and in keeping it woman-centric that even at the expense of women dying in their homes, they won't acknowledge the need for shelters for men. And that's that.
There you go. There you go. So I think a fair summation is we find this man's actions incorrigible, yet the hypocrisy of the entire system and the set of social attitudes, it still helps illustrate them. You agree, Tara?
I do.
Okay, well, we've been going about 45 minutes now, so it's about time to start wrapping this up. I'm going to remind everybody again, we've got the first International Men's Issues Conference coming up in Detroit, which Paul just mentioned. What were the details of that conference again, Paul?
There is, by the way, now, and I will get it into the low bar after this show is over, there is a Facebook event page where you can get tickets, where you can let people know that you're coming or that you might be coming, that will link you to all the details on the speakers that are going to be there and what days they're going to happen. That event's being promoted right now. You can also put in International Men's Conference, A Voice for Men in Google or on the A Voice for Men search, and you'll get all kinds of references to this. We've got tickets on sale now, so go in and get yours. This is a history-making event for the men's movement. We want you all to be there.
Excellent. All right, well, join us next week, as usual, where we'll have...
You're not going to ask Tara if she doesn't have any final thoughts?
It was the special thing last week.
She's a woman. I don't want to hear what she has to say. Do you have anything to add, Dr. T?
No, I don't.
Okay. All right. See you all next week. Have a good one. Peace out.